Yes, Logic Pro for iPad version 2.1 is here at last. And in this special live edition of the Studio Live Today podcast, we're talking all about it. If it's your first time here, my name is Pete. This is Studio Live Today, where my goal is to help you create, record, and release your best music. We do that through tips and tricks and tutorials and live shows just like this one. If you're not already subscribed, I would really appreciate it if you did. And if you get some value out of today, or if you have some fun or anything in between, feel free to hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up because the sun's up, and it certainly is at 6:30 a.m. for me, and usually this is a pre-recorded show. As we're live, I'm going to need all the coffee. So I've got my Studio Live Today coffee mug here ready to go for the show. If you're here live, feel free to say g'day and ask any questions. If you've got a question about Logic Pro or anything related to Apple Music creation, feel free to just put a big Q in front of your comment and I will get to them as we go. So let's not bury the lead. Let's talk about what's new in Logic Pro for iPad 2.1. And there's a lot of stuff here. So the highlights that we have, we've got the new Quantec room simulator. We'll take a look at that one in a moment, which is based on a piece of hardware that is pretty legendary in the studio world. So it's a digital reverb unit. Looks like a lot of fun, and I've already played with it, and it kind of is. Plugins can now be searched for and added with a key command. Oh, that's an interesting one. I didn't know that one. There you go. I'm reading this for the first time because I got the pre-release version, which didn't have all this information. So we'll explore all of this. Channel strips can now be reordered directly in the mixer. That's a handy one to use. Lesson Browser now includes a recent lessons row, and it has progress bars in there as well. There's a new record setting in the track inspector where internal MIDI is active. It allows incoming MIDI to be recorded along with internal MIDI. And in Beat Breaker, the time graph is now shown in the background when the view is set to volume mode. So interestingly, these enhancements here that we have at the start of the update are not all the ones that I've been looking at. So there's other ones that have been buried in here. If you missed my original video, I did a quick overview of all of these here in Logic Pro. There it is. I did a quick overview of all of these and the top 10 features that I thought were worth talking about, which wasn't all of them because a little behind the scenes, behind the curtain stuff. I did have access to this, about 5 days worth of access prior, but I didn't have the user guide and I didn't even have the release notes. I had a very small updated what's new, and that was about it. What are some other things you need to know? How to update. That's probably a good place to start. So if you haven't already updated, go into your App Store now. Full disclosure, you will need iPad OS 18.1 or at least 18.0. Haven't actually gone back to check, but 18.1 will be required. And I know it's actually good timing because I've been saying for quite a few weeks, months even, that you might want to consider waiting to update to 18. But I think it's pretty safe now. And the fact that we now have this here, which is now showing at the wrong screen ratio, let's just unplug and replug. Turn it off and on and see if we can get this iPad looking good. Yeah, again, the challenges of doing such an early show is that I barely had time. I prioritize coffee over setup. So if things aren't perfect here today, guess what? It is what it is. Speaking of which, look, this update will deliver a lot of things that a lot of people want, and it won't deliver a lot of things that other people were hoping for. So if you get your favorite thing added, that's great. If not, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to be for everyone. So here is the new version here. You will need iPad OS 18, and you can see here in the what's new, this little section here has a whole bunch of stuff that has been added. One of the coolest features, my favorite feature, is the new sample folders. Yep, so we're going to play around with that here today. I'm going to show you how that all works as well. But all you need to do is come in here. If this open button says update, just tap on that one, and then you'll be able to open Logic Pro for iPad just as I've done here. And I'm going to fire up one of my previous projects so that we can have a play with this during the show. So this is my Song Timber song, which I've been butchering. This is I've called my mastering faff version because I was playing around with the mastering assistant, and now we'll be playing around with some things like the Quantec room simulator and some of the other plugins and features that we now have here as well. So that's your update. You will need to be on iPad OS 18. That won't be for everyone. If it's not for you, that's cool. There's good stuff in here, but again, there's nothing that's going to be a game. Well, there is game-changing stuff, but there's nothing here that you have to update for right now. So usual rules apply. If you're right in the middle of a project, yeah, you don't have to go ahead and update. You can wait. It's okay. We'll say good day to the folks who are here live, and then we will dive in. If you are just wanting to get into just the facts, ma'am, I don't want to sit here for another 50 minutes listening to you rabbit on Johns, then jump down in the description. If you're on the video version of this, you can jump into the description, and I've got playlists there. If you're on the audio version, just go to your favorite YouTube. Actually, just go to YouTube and type in Peaked Johns Logic Pro 2.1. I've got a heap of information there for you. Let's say good day to some folks. We've got Guzzo of Oz is up early. We've got Mr. Thomas Christ. Good day to Mark Bro. Hello to Jade Star. Hope you are doing well. Hello to Andy Aspen. We've got the one, the only, the man, the myth, legend, Mr. Patrick Baird of the Logic Pro Guide and the GarageBand Guide. He's been busy making videos as well, and I'm sure most of you would already be subscribed. But if you're not, do yourself a favor, and while you're on your favorite YouTube and you're searching for this, look, this is how much I love this guy. His video comes straight up for me. Well, there it is. So the Logic Pro Guide, not just any Logic Pro Guide, the Logic Pro Guide. So there you go. Go ahead. For those watching live, I'm throwing the link here in the chat so that you can go and subscribe. There'd be very few people. The Venn diagram of folks who are subscribed to Patrick's channels and to my channel there's only little tiny slivers on the outside. There's people that are like, I cannot stand Johns and his Australian accent. And then there's people that's like, I cannot stand Baird and his Scottish accent. And apart from that, everyone else is good. Emilio's done their homework, have notes. So yes, also linked in the description of this video. Again, if you're watching the video version, or if you're not, just search it out. We have the release notes. So I gave a quick glimpse of them. They're in a bit of a weird order, to be honest. I thought that the top 10 here were the top 10 that they had in their original release, but they're not. But they have a whole bunch to do with performance. Accessibility got a massive overhaul. So I'm very happy to see this because voiceover and accessibility controls, I'm scrolling down here for those listening in on the audio version, there are a heap of different enhancements. They've really improved a lot of the problems they were having with voiceover because GarageBand's always been great for voiceover. Logic Pro for iPad, it's had its teething problems, but version 2 was a big improvement, and version 2.1 is excellent as well. We've got session players, so there's been some issues with some timing. If you've used some of the session players, you'll notice that sometimes they're like, these are not professional session players. If this was my session player, they would be fired because they're not quite on the beat. Hanging notes that we had before. So yeah, there's just been a few of those little tidbits that have been fixed up. But you can see here, studio instruments, we've got chords on the chord track. I'm hoping that they fixed the copying and pasting of chords. We'll find out about that later. There were some issues with the stem splitter that would create stereo files out of mono files. That's been fixed. Drum Machine and Drum Designer. The mixer's got a whole bunch of improvements and enhancements and updates. So what we're hoping is that, you know how all those little times where you're just like, Logic Pro, you did a thing. Hopefully we won't have it do those things at least as much anymore. Sample Alchemy now includes a limiter. There you go. That's a new one. Plugins, live loops, play surfaces have had some changes. Recording, automation, step sequencer, takes and comping, track stacks. Can we get automatic drum track stacks? What do you reckon, Jade? I don't think so. Sound library and content. So there's a bunch of improvements to the sound library. External hardware support. Patches now load correctly when an external keyboard is attached. Export and bounce, global tracks, key commands, undo. Look at those undo related ones. And then general, there's a heap of general. So I think there's in the vicinity of 200. I haven't counted them by hand, but I've heard from folks like Emilio who have read each and every one of these. There's around about 200 different updates. And as I mentioned before, yours may not be there. And I know it can be sad when you just want a thing. But we can't be everything to everyone. I worked out long ago, and Apple have probably done the same thing, that if you try to be everything to everyone, you'll end up being nothing to no one, see? Yes. And MIDI Learn is a bit of an inside joke about MIDI Learn because as soon as Logic Pro is released, I don't know what it is. Like I get it, but I've never actually used MIDI Learn in my life, so I'm the wrong target demographic to worry about MIDI Learn. I get it. You'd like to use the little buttons, your transport controls on your MIDI keyboards and the like, and it's sad that we can't because it seems like an easy thing. But then again, we don't have the ability to turn off auto normalization on on GarageBand iPad, so don't know what to tell you. Will it make my breakfast? It made me this delicious coffee, so it should do well. Yes, coffee is required. Hello to Leela, who is here live as well. Yeah, if you listen to the podcast and you're normally like, this is normally a little bit more sort of in line and organised, and yeah, no, it's not going to be that way today. We're just going to be having a play around, but that's fun, and it means that if there's any questions that you have, you're welcome to ask. Question: has the Bluetooth bug been fixed? Depends what the Bluetooth bug is that you're referencing, Andy, because there's been a lot of bugs. And can we pause here to say, a lot of these bug fixes and stability improvements and all the wonderful things that we hear about are actually based on your feedback. I know it doesn't feel like it because when you put a feedback, a request in, you submit a bug, you submit a feature request, it feels like it just goes into a black hole and nobody reads it. Apple do actually use those. They might not read every word of everything, but if they get 10 submissions about the same bug and they're doing their review of what they need to change, yeah, of course they're going to look at it. So it's kind of like voting. I say, unless you have submitted at least 10 bug reports in the last year, you don't get to complain about the new update. And if you've submitted 0 updates, then guess what? You get what you get, and you don't get upset. It's the internet, right? It's that could be fun. Checks in the post, outstanding, and thank you for spelling the word check correctly. G'day, Josh. I hope you are doing well. Anyone else I've missed, and if I've missed your question, just throw it here in the chat and put a big Q in front of it. It'll help me find it. So what am I excited about? What do I think is going to be the game changers from this update? Well, without burying the lead, the new hotness is the Quantec Room Simulator. So this is a piece of kit. I won't just tell you about it. I'll show you about it. And I demonstrated it on, I'll do guitar this time because I used my vocals to demonstrate it before. So let's come in here and find a guitar and do a quick sound test. This is like my power chord in my recent Songtember song. So there's a nice guitar sound. So if you want to check this out, you've got full access to it right now. As soon as you update, you can come in here to your plugins. And what I'll do, in fact, I've already got this on here. There you go. Here's one I prepared earlier. So I'm just going to delete it so that we can go from the start. So that's gone. What I'll do is I'll take off the platinum verb. I'll leave the amp designer on just so we get more of a dry sound here to start with. So here's my drier guitar. Sounds like this. And the idea of the Quantec Room Simulator, if you haven't read the backstory, is that it was developed by a guy called, say it with me, Patrick, Wolfgang. It was developed by Wolfgang, and it was a piece of kit from way back in the 70s and 80s that basically, instead of just trying to replicate, it did the closest that we'd seen at the time, and it's still used today in studios to actually replicate reverb. It's a digital reverb unit, but it's actually sort of punches above its weight in terms of what it can do. And what Apple actually did here, if we just double tap this one, what they did is they actually went to the effort of completely licensing this piece of kit. So if you tap here on the Quantec thing, you get the whole sort of backstory of the Quantec Room Simulator. So you get to find out all about Wolf and all of the amazing work. And basically they've taken this piece of hardware and they've got all the, I'm imagining this was, so if you don't know, Logic Pro have a big German team as well as their team in the US. So because this is a German dude, this is a German piece of kit. I can only imagine that the German team dove into all of these notes and wanted to create something not only for folks to use, but kind of to honor the legacy. So it's kind of a cool thing. I think Patrick said that in his video, that it's what's a nice way of saying this? It's not super Apple-like to go to this level of effort and care, and not just create something that's similar. I mean, if you look at all the amp simulators and the reverb simulators and everything else we've got in here beforehand, they weren't brand named, because if you have a brand name, you have to license that brand name. But instead, they actually bought this. So they wanted to preserve this, so they bought it, which I think is pretty cool. So what do I recommend with this? Well, you can do the lesson. So you would have seen in there, if you tap on the Quantec, you can do the lesson. If you do show lesson here, you can actually dive into the lesson. It's actually pretty good, 15 minutes, and it tells you a little bit about all of the different options that we have here, because like most plugins in here, it kind of looks daunting and overwhelming when you first look at it. So my recommendation with stuff like this is to actually use the presets. So like most of the Apple Logic plugins, if you tap on default preset here, you got a heap of different presets. You got small rooms, medium rooms, large rooms, QRS classics, and warped rooms. So let's just listen to a couple of these. Let's come into a nice live room. And what you'll notice here is there's two different models. So the Quantec QRS was like the OG. This was the original version, and the Quantec Yardstick is like the updated version. So this one came out in, I'm forgetting all my dates now, Patrick, help me out here, but came out in like the late 70s, and then this one was in the 80s, and it was basically an updated version of that one. So when we go to Live Room here, it dials in the settings. You've got your big reverb time knob there, and then you've got the settings here in the middle. So let's take a listen to this with the Live Room on this guitar. Turn it off. So it just creates that really nice feel. And if you've watched me do GarageBand videos before, you'll know that I love using like a master reverb, a master delay on a bus in order to create like a glue. And I think this is going to be great for adding on a bus. So just having a bus with the Quantec Room Simulator, and then sending different amounts of your different instruments as required to those buses, or even having a couple. You could layer up a couple, because remember, you can add multiple of the same plugin, especially if you're using buses. So start fiddling around with these. Go to some medium rooms. Let's find one that's actually on the QRS, shall we? What's something that looks fun here? A metal tube? No, that's a lighthouse. There's some fun ones here. A grotto. Let's play in the grotto. Let's pretend we're at the Playboy Mansion and we're in the grotto. So if you're listening on stereo, you're starting to hear a lot of those reflections coming to and fro. So we'll turn it off, and then I'll turn it on, and you'll hear the difference here. Listen to the stereo width jump out. Really cool. Let's grab a large room. Or what about a concerto? Let's take a listen to this. Again, bigger, wider. And especially when like you can really hear the tail of the reverb when you hit that part. Let's try that one, but with like a long tunnel. This could be fun. Let's take a listen to this. You can see here, every time we dial it in, it changes things like the reverb time, and it changes all of our settings here around our reverb settings that we have here. By the way, if we take the plugins away again, we get the full display, because you've got a whole bunch of things over here, like your room size, your reverb density, your reverb delay. We didn't have the manual until yesterday, so myself and probably Patrick as well are working on full videos of these. So depending on which accent you like to hear with your tutorial videos, we'll definitely have some updated and more in-depth Quantec videos coming soon, because there's so many knobs and dials to twiddle. Let's take a listen to this section here. So you can really hear those reverb tails coming through. Let's go back over here to our plugins. We've got the QRS Classics that we can play around with here. Oh my God, I didn't realize that there's subfolders here in the QRS Classics. That's pretty amazing. There's so much to play with. Headphones? Interesting. All right. Yeah, okay. Yardstick Music Library. What was that? So this is how little time we've had with this so far. Oh my goodness! So you got like plate reverbs as well in here, plate with pre-delays. You got living room unfurnished. So there's a ridiculous amount of time and effort that's gone in just to the presets of these. Let's try some warped rooms. This could be interesting. What's something? What about a tank? Now I don't know whether this is a bang bang tank or a like, oh ma pa, I fell into the water tank. But we'll find out. Probably more the latter because it's kind of metallic sounding there. So yeah, you got a heap of different options in here. You can do everything from very subtle stuff to very full-on stuff as well. So yeah, the Quantec Room Simulator. And again, don't forget to tap on the thing there. Read all about it. Unfortunately, Wolfgang Buchleiter? No, it's not that at all, is it, Patrick? Is no longer with us, but it's a wonderful way for Apple to have honoured the memory and a very cool piece of kit. Get a dynamite throw. I've started to feel the siren call of Logic Pro lately. Yeah, look, it's Apple are not unsmart. They're not a multi-trillion-dollar company for no reason. So I think their timing was really good on version 2. It came out just as we were all deciding whether we would keep it for another year, because it is a yearly subscription. I know I buried the lead on that one. I kind of make the assumption that folks that are watching this video may know that, but if you don't, Logic Pro for iPad is a subscription. So you're going to pay around $5 a month, around $50 a year. That's US. It's a little more for folks like me here in Australia. Danny Elliott. It's a Danny Elliott sighting in the wild. Someone who's been around this channel and this community for a very long time. Always wonderful to see you, Danny. Yeah, you probably missed it right up the front that I did mention that you will need to update to the latest iPad OS. So you do need to be on iPad OS 18.1 and then Logic Pro. You'll see the update pop up there for Logic Pro. Quick side note. I checked yesterday for our GarageBand users. We didn't have, it looks like it's here. We didn't have the update to GarageBand yesterday. So I was going to do a video on this one too. It looks like we now have it. So let's just double check that and see if we have it here. Yep, there it is. Modular Melodies. Just going to take a screenshot of that for my thumbnail for my video later. So if you're a GarageBand user and you're just checking this out because you're pondering, you're considering getting Logic Pro or trying out Logic Pro, well, you do get, the one thing you do get from Logic Pro is the pack. And that's one good thing that I think that Apple have done recently is that they've got consistency between the Logic Pro and the GarageBand packs. So at least you're not missing out on those cool. And to be honest, the modular stuff is actually pretty cool. Coffee break. The Logic Drummer, my favorite part of Logic. Nothing else. Yeah, it is cool. And if you're brand new and you haven't played around with things like the studio instruments, then it's pretty cool. Oh, they don't get the synth sounds in the pack. Okay, see, this is why you have experts like Patrick around when we do these things. So just the Apple loops, they don't get the Alchemy synth, which is weird because we do have Alchemy synth in. It must be using some Logic only stuff in those Alchemy patches, which is unfortunate. So just the loops for Apple users. Yeah, I would have been disappointed to find that out when I go see it. Kyle's getting a little long in the tooth. Yeah, look, I must admit, despite the fact that I'm in the privileged position where for my songs like this one, I've got Jade doing some pretty amazing multi-track drums like this. If I didn't have a Jade, I would definitely be using the session drummer, and they do a good job. All the session instruments are very cool. I must admit, when I first opened this and I first heard that there was going to be a new version of Logic Pro for iPad, I immediately thought that there would be something along the lines of a new session instrument. But I honestly don't know what one it's going to be. Let me know. Do you think that there'll be another session instrument? And if so, what's it going to be? A lot of people have been saying, what about a session guitar? I'm like, they've got to fix the guitar sounds first. There needs to be actually good guitar samples before we can actually use guitar sounds here. So, yeah, I think that's where we're at with that one. If you do have any questions, by the way, please go ahead and ask. I'll just need to respond to a text here. Right, done. Done. That's what you get for not putting yourself on Do Not Disturb when you start a show. I'm still in sleep mode. That's how early it is here. Hello to Joe and Barry Glenn. I hope you are doing well. Yeah, Joe and Barry, just as you've started learning Logic Pro, they've added a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, let's in honor of Joe and Barry Glenn, I hope, Joe and Barry, that you have done all of these already, but they've updated and enhanced all the lessons here in Logic Pro for iPad. That's another thing that we've got that is new. So if you go in here and you create a new project like this, what you can do is come down here to featured lessons. And if you tap on this big show more button, you've got all your in progress lessons up the top here. So it'll actually tell you ones you're working on at the moment. And then you've got a heap here. You've got your get started. You've got your browse for sounds and loops. You've got your edit and arrange stuff here. You got your record. You got your session players. Like there's something for everything here. So the new ones, I think it's under, here it is. So we've got what's new for Logic Pro 2.1, and then in progress up here, we've got the intro to the Quantec Room Simulator. So they're the new ones that we have just for Logic Pro for iPad 2.1. And you've also got all the other lessons. And they're not, look, they're not amazing. They're not as good as a Logic Pro guide or a Studio Live Today video. Clearly, you'd still need to keep watching all of our videos. But if you just want to get just the facts, so for instance, with the Quantec one here, if we jump in and start the lesson, it'll download it. And it's cool because it gives you these floating boxes. So it tells you what to do and how to go. So listen to the project like that. And yep, you can hear it. And then it tells you what to do. Tap on here, tap on this clap track, solo it. So it's a follow the bouncing ball kind of thing that you can do right on your own iPad. So as important as it is to watch tutorial videos and do things that we tell you to do, this is just a quick way. We'll just end the lesson. This is just a quick way to get started. And if you're not sure on something and you're not a manual reader, then you can dive in there and check out the lessons. It really does make it less intimidating. And to be honest, and I don't know if Patrick did the same thing, but when Logic Pro 1 came out and we had early access, that was what I did. I literally went in and did every single lesson and just took notes. And then what I built out of that was based on the lessons and the user guide that we had at the time. So it is well worth doing the lessons. Don't think you're too good for the lessons. I'm definitely not too good for the lessons. You will find a lot of information, a lot of gold in them there. Their lessons. Yes, good to know. Just finished a project. So there you go. So when you start your next project, you'll be all good and ready to go. Should we talk about some of the other updates and features that have been added in here? So if we come back to our iPad, we will go back to our project that we were playing around with here. Or should we record something? What do you reckon? No, that could be dangerous. Let's just use my project. I did have my microphone and guitar set up here, but given it's so early and I'm going to be super rusty, I think I'll just use something I prepared earlier for you here. So a couple of changes that we have in here. We can now change our track order. And you're saying, Johns, you can already change your track order. Yes, you can out here. So you can move your tracks around like so. But you can also jump here into the mixer now and do the same. Boop, 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 boop. And yes, you couldn't do this before. I know, it was a bit crazy that you couldn't actually just reorder your mixes because it's the same thing there as it is out in the main window, but now you can do it in both. And this is where doing the lesson was actually quite useful because it reminded me that you can multi-select here. So you can use this multi-select button up the top and you can multi-select a bunch of different tracks. And then when you move them all at once. So if you've got your guitars like I do here and you want to shift all of your guitars up to the top of the project, you can do it just like that. So that's a handy feature with your multi-select turned on your mixer, which I'd kind of forgotten about. You can also now reorder your plugins without going into edit mode. So if you come over here to your plugins, we'll just go back. So here's your plugin view. And what you used to have to do, see, is tap on the edit button here and go into this mode, and then you could switch these around. You could drag and drop your plugins to different slots. And if you're not aware, plugin order is important. So the reason that there's noise gate, pedal board, amp, compressor, reverb, channel EQ, and then your processor, your QRS at the end, is because that's generally the order you want. You want your original sounds to be processed up the front. Then you usually want to add any sort of compression that you want. Then you want like your reverbs and your delays. Then you might want an EQ. You might want an EQ at the start and at the finish. But it will process those in order. So it's always going to process them from left to right because it's like a signal chain. It's like you're plugging in. It comes from the fact, like we kind of forget that plugins are called that because you plug them in. They used to be a piece of hardware that you plugged and then you plugged and then you plugged. You daisy chain this stuff together so that it goes from left to right or from the first to the last, as I whack my microphone twice. Well, the good news is that now you don't have to go into that edit mode. You can just tap and hold and it will just turn in to these little tiles and then just leave you here, which is much more convenient if you want to just do a quick change. You're like, actually, I want this channel EQ right at the end. You just grab it, move it. Oh, didn't do that right. Grab it, move it, and drop it at the end, and you're good to go. So you can still do everything else the same here, but it's just a little quality of life improvement that we have here now in the new version. So those are both pretty cool. I can't sustain while recording MIDI. Hello, today knowledge. I can't sustain while recording MIDI. What to do? That's a good question. I'll tag that and we'll come back to that. If anyone's got any ideas on that for now, or just embiggen that, then let today knowledge know. Maybe a little more information using an external keyboard or the internal keyboard. Very basically, if we fire up a MIDI track here, in fact, let's just talk about it now because why not? So we'll just add a new MIDI track, just any old thing, like so. So your sustain button is here. So you can, you can slide it on and it will stay on. So this one here, so now sustain's on. Slide it to go off. This particular patch actually has quite a lot of sustain built into it, so it's probably a really bad example of it. But yeah, if you're using just this one, that's your sustain button that you can use there, or you can latch it on. And that's basics of how you can record sustain. If you're using an external keyboard, you just use a sustain pedal, and that gives you a lot better and more control over the sustain of your instruments. So yeah, I've got videos on the channel all about MIDI keyboards and how to record them into both GarageBand and Logic Pro for iPad. So yeah, basically just plug and play. The good thing about MIDI keyboards, despite the lack of MIDI learn, is that they are pretty much just plug and play, and you can have fun with those. So on the track order of the mix, order of the plugins, should we talk sample folder? In fact, I've got something that someone wanted me to check out about the sample folder. So you may be aware that over here on the left, we have a browser. And in previous versions, you had a heap of different things. You had instruments, you had audio patches, loops, samples, plugin presets, patterns, and you could go to get more sounds. And I'm wondering how many people are being triggered by this because I have all the sounds and there's a little 2 there. I shouldn't laugh because it's probably a serious thing that annoys people, but I don't really care. I just come in here and I'm like, I've got everything. It's fine. Like you go to manage packs and you check everything. Oh, hang on. We do have all available packs. What does it reckon I don't have? Oh, I've got to re-get the pom-pom and the Ellie Dixon and the Take a Day Trip. So perhaps these have been updated. You do find this. It's sort of hidden in the weeds, but sometimes there's a couple of sounds or a couple of samples in these previous packs that have been updated. And maybe that's what's happened here. So we'll just hit the Get All button. Yeah, okay. 944. Maybe I didn't have them for some reason. That's a little odd. Let me know if you're watching this either live or on the replay and you had the same thing where these particular packs had some updates. Let me know. Or maybe just in a recent tutorial, I just deleted them and forgot about it. All right, they're all downloading now and they're all there. So now... Oh, no, that one's still... Okay, yeah, that's downloading. Still downloading the Ellie Dixon, this one, the swing, that sample track that we had. So, yeah, what were we talking about? Yeah, so now you got one more... Yeah, there you go. Now we've got everything. But still got the Get More Sounds there. Oh, is it going to trigger people? Oh, I think last time we had this problem and... yeah, people were furious, absolutely furious at this little red 2. They're obviously not people like me that live their life with 4,952 emails in their inbox. And before you say anything, They're all spam, and I use Gmail. I don't use Apple Mail. So, yes, should I go in there and delete them? Sure. But do I care? Not really. Should I just remove it from my front screen so people stop getting triggered? Also, probably. Let's talk sample folders. They're here. I've already added some. I've shown these in the videos that I did already about sample folders. So I just created a bass and a drum sample folder and a downloads. I've just added my downloads here, actually, which I thought was a fun implementation of this. Oh, I must admit, because this downloads folder has lots of very large files, I have had this issue where I'm flicking down and I don't think these folders are designed for very large files because these are all of my audio files for like my videos. So they're actually really big. So I'm finding it quite laggy when I'm going up and down like this. So when I'm trying to scroll, so just so you know, I'm flicking on the screen. I'm basically going like this, flick, flick, and it's sitting there waiting. So, but if you're a normal person and you're just using normal files, they're here. It is a bit of a concern though, because if you wanted to use this for stems, you will have folders full of lots of large files. So that may just be something that I need to explore in more detail to see what is going on. Let me just search in here for MIDI files. Yeah, I don't think it supports it. So one question I did get was, do sample folders support MIDI files? I don't think they do. I'll double check that in a moment, but I did put a MIDI file in this downloads folder and it's not there. Let's go back to scratch. I'm going to delete these out. So to remove folders, we'll go backwards, we'll go reverse order, tap and hold and tap on remove folder and they will go away. And then to add a sample folder, when you're here ready to add your first one, you tap add sample folders, you tap choose folder, and then you choose which folder you like. So for me, I'm going to go into my iCloud drive, into my Studio Live Today folder, into loops, and say I want to throw this bass items on there. There it is. So it's ready to go. And the cool thing is that you can preview directly in here. And you can even do the thing where you hold and drag down. And all these files are now available to be directly just dragged and dropped either directly into your project, into a track, or you can even drag them onto your track header here and create things like sample alchemy and quick sampler instruments or drum machine designers if you've got a bunch of drums as well. So it is a cool way if you've got big giant folders of samples, like libraries of loops and libraries of one-shots. I think it is more designed for that, like just the very fact that when I added my download folder before, in fact, let's show you how we can add more sounds. If we go to the sample folder here and we tap in the bottom right here and we go to add a sample folder, we can add a whole another folder. So I, again, added my downloads folder, which has a bunch of stuff. It does have this MIDI file in here, this 29207 that I downloaded before. So let's just open this and add all of these download folders in here. And yeah, I'm almost sure it doesn't grab that MIDI file, which is probably going to make some folks sad. So you can't use this for storing a large number of MIDI files. It's for your audio files only, which I guess means the only way to import a MIDI file is still to use the same method as before, which is a little bit sad. Yeah, so we're still going to have to use the Files app to drag and drop MIDI files as opposed to having those in here. So if you're using one of those MIDI packs, the ones that are kind of a meme now, where they paid a bunch of creators to say, oh, these are the best MIDI loops ever. I just drag and drop these in and I create amazing songs in different keys. Is that unfair? People know what I mean. Like, have you seen those ads? There's more videos now debunking them going, dude, this is just this is just MIDI patterns that anyone could create or that you could use autoplay to create or you can download for free from everywhere. I don't know how this is even a thing. Hello, Capsalam. I hope you are doing well, my friend. So sustain pedal would be better. Yeah. So after you play, yeah. So play a chord and then hold down the sustain. So when I record the MIDI keyboard, even with sustain on the recording, it's not sustain. Should I use a sustain pedal? So yeah, you might just need to latch on the sustain. As we showed before, you can hit that little switch and latch it on and then just play with that. Otherwise, yeah, if you're using a MIDI keyboard, a sustain pedal is definitely the way to go. And they're cheap and available everywhere. Studio Gear Guide, studiolive today.com/gear is the place to go. And yeah, just buy yourself a cheap little sustain pedal, and then yeah, you play the chord, you hold the sustain pedal down, and then when you release the pedal, so you get full control over your sustain, and it can work really well. Where were we at? Sample folders. Now, there's been a few little sort of quality of life things in here that many of you probably won't use. I showed all these in my previous video, so I'm not going to go into detail about them here. But there's the bounce in place. So now when you tap on one of these and tap again, under your bounce and join, if we do bounce in place, you can now choose destination. So you've got either one file per track, one file per region, and you can actually bounce to a new track or to the same track. I think I can't use the same track here because there's multiple things on there, but there's just been a few additional things added to that. Copy and paste region info. This one's going to be handy. Folks like, so Joe and Barry Glenn, who are here, I know in GarageBand you've had this problem before, and my advice is to always make sure that when you've got, say, multiple things like this where they all have to line up. Have you ever had this problem where you zoom in, you turn your snap off, and you've accidentally like moved something to a different spot, and now your two guitars no longer line up, and unless you've got these right on the grid, it can be really hard to work out where to move them back to. Now, again, if you've taken my advice and they're right on a grid, you've got that little lead in, yeah, it's not going to be a problem. You can just move it back like that. But if you didn't, the other option you have now is that you can actually copy and paste the region info. So if you come in here to your inspector, see how you got your position here and your length? You can actually copy this. You can tap and hold. Doesn't look like you can, but you can copy this. Actually, that's the wrong one. You can tap on this, you can tap and you can copy. And then when you come to this one here, well, I'm selecting multiple ones. That one, you can tap and copy the position. And then you tap on this, and then you can tap and copy and paste the position, and look what happens. It lines them up. So if you've got something floating out in the middle of nowhere and you've turned off Snap to Grid and you can't find where you need to put it, you can now just come in here and get the exact position right down to the actual semi-click and then line those up. So again, quality of life stuff, nothing huge. Copy, paste, region, session players regenerate. So In news that will make all of our friends who love all the AI stuff very happy, we've made our session players sound more like robots. It used to have an option called Perform Again. So if you're playing a session player here, ooh, oh, I've got some external device going on there. All right, won't worry about that for now. So now this button here, it's called Regenerate. So if you want to try a different thing, so it used to be called Perform Again, and I don't know, maybe they got a bunch of people complaining saying, it's a robot, it's not real, it can't perform, it's not human. Either way, that's interesting. It's interesting I keep getting that incorrectly. That's probably because I'm using mostly audio files in this one. That's fine. All right, so that's a new thing, is your MIDI. Your session plays, you've got to regenerate. You can now loop from the shortcut menu, is another thing here. So if you were looking to loop out a performance or loop out a track here, you used to be able to go here and tap loop and just drag it, which is fine. But now you don't have to go up to there if you don't want to. You can tap here, tap again, and under your edit, you've got loop, which is actually similar to what it was in GarageBand. And then if you want to unloop it, you just go edit, turn loop off, and it's there. So that's the thing. Lessons we've already talked about. And again, the last but not least is your Modular Melodies sound pack. So you would have seen there when we went to get more sounds, we have this one here, the Modular Melodies synth pack, which has over 250 Apple loops and more than 20 Alchemy synth patches. And it is different from the modular rhythms. I know, I thought it was the same originally, and then I'm like, wait, no, it is not the same. It is different. So we've got the new Modular Melodies sound pack that we can play around with. So to finish off here, let's fiddle around with some of the new features and let's create ourselves a little project, shall we? So we'll come in here, we'll go to iCloud Drive, Logic Pro for iPad. We'll go to my tutorials folder, which I can not find. There it is. And we'll create a project. Let's come in here. So we'll add some tracks. Won't use live loops, we'll add tracks. We'll go into patches, loops, and samples. Let's start with a bass line from my sample folder. Oh no, let's start with drums from my sample folder. So again, I haven't got my drums re-added here, but we'll add sample folder. We will go in here to iCloud Drive, Logic Pro for iPad. Nope, wrong one. I wanted to go to the Studio Live Today folder, loops, and drums. Add that one in here. So let's just find a drum pattern. Oof, oof. That one sounds fun. Let's bring this one in. Drop it in there. Let's convert the file, because you can either change your project or change your file. So let's just create a nice little drum pattern here. We need to change our. Oh, this is 120, isn't it? Gosh. Yep. It's because it's got a little ka-ching there at the end. We need to do it like that so we can use it as a loop. So we'll just do a little 8-bar loop here. So let's play around with some of these now that we've got some real drums there. If we come in here to our audio loops, our Apple loops here, the way that we can get to the ones that are just in this pack is to come out here and go to Sound Pack, scroll across until we get to Modular Melodies, tap on that one, and now it's just going to be all of the modular melody ones. So that one sounds fun. Let's just use these. And this looks like fun. Just trying random stuff here. Yeah, we'll bring in the bug chips as well. And let's use that looping function that we've just learnt about here. That's going to just loop on forever. What else have we got here that we can just throw on this? Ooh, I like it. No, we can't have too many melodic things here. We need something, even though most of these are melodic. Let's add this percussion. All right, what have we created? An absolute mess. Let's pare it back to just a couple. That's pretty cool. So if we now just come in here and we wanted to say this particular sound, let's add some effects to this. Bring in that Quantec room simulator. And this is where we can use some of the really wacky stuff. Let's go to some warped rooms. Yeah. We're on the wrong track. That's why we're not hearing it. I'm not hearing much difference. Try that again. Well, the mirror box is fun. Yeah, so you can definitely use these to really enhance the tones, can't you? Come back to the start. Let's throw this one into a large room here. So yeah, just fun times. Whenever you get something new, it is fun to just play around with, explore, and navigate around the new hotness. Yep, buried the lead here, but Logic on Mac actually has all the same updates. So yes, if you're a Mac user, there is Logic 11.1. Let's go to my favorite place, which is Why Logic Pro Rules. and see what they've got here. Yes, it's 11.1. So I would highly recommend go and watch this video about the 11.1 update. Why Logic Pro Rules is a wonderful channel. And if you're looking for information about Logic Pro for Mac, that is your one-stop shop for that. But yeah, you've got a lot of stuff to play with over there. But thank you for being here, cool and futuristic punk. Hello, Tremor Bear, who's here. Hello, Marxist Heathen Granny. Hope you are doing all well and all good in the hood. We've got ourselves about 10 minutes left. If you have any final comments, thoughts, things that you hate about this, things that you love about this, I know that when folks catch this on the replay, because I know it's very early, this show, but when folks catch it on the replay, I'm sure the comments will be full of the things that you want to see, and that's fine. But I will tell you, do make sure that you actually log them. So Logic Pro for iPad feedback. I'm pretty sure this is all you need to search for and you're going to find it. There you go. Just ignore all of the... is anyone else as frustrated with me every time you see this little AI overview? Yeah, it's not good. What does it tell someone this week? That Logic Pro is available on iPhone, but you need an iPhone 16 Pro. Yeah, you don't. So here's the comments. If you're reporting an issue, please include a brief summary. So just come here to your feedback. So it's apple.com/feedback/Logic Pro. You tell it your country, your region. Yeah, look, does it take a little minute to fill this in? Sure. But if it really does help, this is what drives a lot of those changes. The folks at Apple are in there doing their thing, but they can't use Logic Pro as much as regular users are actually in there playing with it. So please, for the love of your deity of choice, especially if you plan to complain about things that are not fixed and things that are not in there and things that should be in there, dive in here. Spend some time. Spend an hour or two. And look, it goes without saying, but you don't have to report everything. Like, you don't go looking for problems, but as you're creating, as you're actually making music, which is the whole point of having a DAW like Logic Pro, then just flag anything that pops up and just like put it in a little notebook, and then later just go in there, take some screenshots, go in there and log it as a bug if it's a bug. If it's a feature request, log it as a feature request. If it's just general feedback, put it in there as general feedback. Question, the sound pack's the same for GarageBand Logic. So Patrick, our wonderful friend Patrick from the Logic Pro and GarageBand guides, respectively, told us that it isn't. So it's not the same. I'm just going to dive in here to the Modular Melodies pack. Yeah, so here's the difference, is that with this one, you only get the Apple loops. So for whatever reason, you don't get the Alchemy synth patches. So that is the major difference between the Modular Melodies pack on Logic and the one here. So that's GarageBand. If we come over to Logic Pro and we go to that same pack, come out here and go in and check out the sound library. Where is it? Sound packs, Modular Melodies. Yeah, so you get the Alchemy synth patches. And if you're not familiar, I didn't actually show those in this. I showed those in my other video. But if you're not familiar with the Alchemy synth patches, if we come in here, we add a MIDI instrument and we go to instrument patches and we search via that sound pack again, which is Modular Melodies. There it is. So you get all of these. So you get these actual instruments. So we can play like the analog lullaby instrument here if we drag that in here. Why is that not working for me? Because it's not paused. No, I've ruined it. I don't know what I've done. Someone will be watching knowing what I've done here, but I've not added that correctly. Oh. No, I've ruined it. But it's there. It's there. Packs in general, they're similar. So there's a few differences. There's some things here that you only get the Logic version has in them, whereas the other one does not. Oh, this is doing something weird. It's glitching out here, man. I broke it. I've broken Logic. But primarily the same. You'll sometimes get a few additional things in the Logic pack. So Logic is just slightly enhanced sometimes over the GarageBand versions as well. Oh, I've got your comment there twice. Hello, Robert Latzer. Thanks for being here. Logic for Mac update tells me I'm offline when trying to download additional signs when I'm clearly online. That's a weird one, Robert. You might need to check that you're updated to the latest version of macOS Sequoia. I think you might need the latest version there, and try turning it off and on. I know it's the universal fix, but sometimes Mac just gets itself in a tizzy and it thinks things are one way when they're definitely not. So close all your apps, completely power down your Mac, turn it back on, and it works most of the time. Mini. When's MIDI Learn coming? Please ask that. MIDI Learn is going to be like the new when is Logic Pro coming to iPad? Because we had a particular user that was asking about that for the longest time, and then it came, and we haven't seen them since. So maybe they'll return and ask me every single week when MIDI Learn is coming. And look, I get it. If that's something, I don't mean to tease, if that's something you really want, but there are other apps that have MIDI Learn. And yeah, it may be that you just really want to use Logic Pro, but it just doesn't have that one feature. I do understand your frustration. It's a bit like the little number 2 that I can still see here. I've updated everything and I still have the number 2. So I'm waiting for that to be the next big thing that fills the comments as well. Is why does it still show number 2? Why does it show their stuff when there's still no stuff? I've requested one of the general bugs in the feedback page that was fixes in version. There you go. So yeah, Emilio's been busy, and it's nice. It's nice to see when you go into those release notes and you've reported a bug, and then you see that one of the bugs that's been fixed has been one of your bugs. That's actually a good thing. Thomas said it just migrated to the new Mac and had a devil of a time updating the sounds in Logic. Many crashes, although not that specific problem. Yeah, I had issues with the Logic. Mine was a size issue. I did not have a big enough storage space to put all the Logic sounds, and I tried to do the trick where you install them on an SSD externally, and it didn't work that well for me. It was not a huge success. So, yeah, I learnt from that. And to be honest, for all the problems we have with the Files app on iPad, yeah, sometimes your Mac file stuff is a bit weird as well. So the other thing, I have a number 2 problem. Exactly. I have a number 2 problem. No, my only problem right now is that my coffee is running really low and it's getting cold. That desperately needs a replacement. So that means it's time for us to finish off here. So I hope you enjoyed this little live look and insight into Logic Pro for iPad. I have a heap more videos. So down in the description, if you're watching the video version, I've released one video, and I've got others that are coming through the day. So we've got another one coming out officially a bit later today, and then tomorrow, and then Sunday, and then Monday. So over the next 3 or 4 days, you'll get more videos. But a little expert tip here: if you go into the playlist that's down there, there are some videos that are currently unlisted that you can already watch. So I go through the lessons, I go through the sample folder, and I go through the new sound pack in more detail. So if you're interested in any of those, do jump into the description and check those out. And otherwise, just wait for your notification to come in the next couple of days. Apart from Logic Pro, we have a big weekend. If you're watching this live, we've got a big weekend of stuff going on here. Of course, the happy hour coming up. We've got GarageBand Weekly. We've got Your Music Live. So we've got plenty of other live shows for you here. And once again, if you're watching live here as well, I will send you straight over to Jade, who has got an interview show coming up in just 1 minute's time. That is going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoy this. I really do. I know we joke around and we have a bit of fun, mostly because music should be fun. Music shouldn't be serious. If you're getting frustrated creating music, if you're so angry that the thing you wanted is there or the thing that you didn't want is there, then maybe consider doing something else for a while, because it shouldn't be a bad thing. You should just not that you should accept things. If you want things, you could continue asking for them, but make sure you do it in the right way by actually logging those tickets over on the Apple feedback page. Or look, you know what? You can go in my comments or you can email me. I just can't do much about it. I'll say I'm very sorry. I feel for you. No, I don't want the red 2 to be there either. I'm more than happy to say that. Thanks again for being here. Please, folks, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. Keep creating. And I'll see you real soon right here on Studio Live today. Enjoy Logic Pro 2.1. Bye for now.